All right, so announcement. This is the first episode of season 2. The Bee Hunter Dance Talk Show has a season 2. Like, we're officially a multi-season talk show about dance. How cool is that? I'm super excited because when we first started the talk show, I was like so nervous. Like so nervous. I had no idea what I was doing. And every time I've started a venture like that, I feel like I'm nervous because I know how important it is. But I never really know how important it really is. So if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I want to say thank you if you've been to season 2, and even if you're just starting in if you watch season 1, and even if you're just watching season 2, thank you so much for joining because this show is an adventure. The subject for season 2 is going to be dance as a tool and how we can use dance to change the most important part of the dance world, and that most important part is people. So come with me on this journey as we dive into people's stories, as we dive into examples, as we dive into scenarios that we can find ourselves in when we use dance to its fullest extent.
Yeah, yeah.
What's going on, guys? So I hope you're doing well. I hope you are dancing. You are loving life, eating your green vegetables. So this interview, I'm going to preface by saying it's not the way I usually do interviews, but I interviewed my friend Samuregz. He is in Kenya. Okay, so it's like an 8-hour difference, 7-hour difference, depending on daylight savings time. And there's different internet issues that happened and a bunch of different stuff. So I'm basically kind of using this as a jump off point to kind of highlight the different things that he said in the interview. And kind of salvage those clips. Anyways, his name is Samuregz, right? So his official name is Samuel Morega, but he combines them. He kind of goes by Samuregz, which is a combination of the two names. He started off as a dancer, just like any of us, and he transferred more into a dance brand as he started his own business, started teaching, and he has several different projects that he's doing. One of the first things I asked Sam was, how is the Kenya dance scene? Because I've never been to Kenya, I've never been to Africa at all, and so I want to kind of get his opinion about it and his perspective on it. And so this is what he said.
Well, I think the Kenyan dancing right now is better than it was 10 years ago. We still have probably a long way to go based on what I see coming out in terms of YouTube and things like World of Dance and the likes. But there's a huge improvement and a huge shift. When I was starting dance, it was pretty much considered a waste of time. Of just, you do it until you grow up. It was mostly for guys around high school and campus, that is university. But then in the last few years, we've seen quite a rise in terms of guys who taking it as a career and a number of people um, just trying to make a living out of it. So there's a huge improvement in the last 10 years, but we still have quite some ways to go. And then our dance culture always shifts. A few years ago, we used to emulate a lot of what the West did in terms of hip hop and the Western styles. In recent years, we've transitioned more into the Afro kind of dances and groove. So it's right now there's a blend in a way, but most people do a lot of Afro because it's more groovy and it's more relatable in terms of events. Because it's really hard to go to an event and see people pop and lock, but it's easy to go and just see people groove and the like. So that's why the Afro styles have really hit home more than ever, let me say so.
So that was education for me personally. I don't know how much you know about the Kenyan dance scene, but From there, we moved into a more personal topic, which is like specifically what he's doing. And one of the things he's doing is something called the Dawn Project. So he kind of explains here who makes it up, when it started, and like the vision or purpose behind what he is building. He's super forward thinking, like always thinking ahead and always thinking like years down the road as opposed to the here and now. So it's really cool to get his perspective in the beginning of something because he's already planning ahead for what he wants it to become and why.
So the Dawn project is it's something that even for me, I'm trying to really grasp what it's meant to be fully. Like I know I have the vision, but where it is right now, it's like how you can have a blueprint of a house, but you're still in the process of digging the foundation. So that's where we are. But what be, it's meant to be a space or a ministry, if I may call it, that brings dancers from different churches and not hopefully even all over the world together for the purposes of a few things. One of the things is mentorship because I feel like uh, from a skill level, we can push more than we are seeing in the Christian dance community. I think the one group that in a way inspires me right now is V3. Like V3 are probably from the Kenyan perspective, they're the guys we see abroad and we are like, yeah, these are really good dancers. But we rarely get to see excellence in skill. So that's something I'm hoping we can do with the Dawn project. The other thing also is in terms of mentorship, not mentorship, sorry, discipleship in the faith, because we live in a world that is getting more and more averse to God. Like we are shunning God more and more, and uh, to an extent, it's becoming an issue because living without God in the short term is always nice because you get to engage all your selfish desires. But then these things come also with long term consequences in a way. And even if there were no consequences, like from the human side, I believe God created us for a purpose. And if we're not living in light of that purpose, then it's all for nothing. And so now that's the other side of what the Dawn Project is about, the discipleship part. But how I'd also want to do it is in a very real way, where we sit down and address and have conversations about what's actually going on in culture. Because there are these things like sex in church, which is prevalent now more than probably 10 years ago. I'm not so sure about the States, but in Kenya, that's the case. Or, how something like the LGBTQ community, how do you address such a topic in a way that God will be seen? Because for us, the LGBTQ is like taxpayers in church, in the Bible. As in, there are those people who most believers then were like, we don't even want to get close to them. But I believe that Jesus showed us how to deal with such kind of people, the people that we do not understand, and the people who that is their lifestyle. And so there's also topics like our insecurities. We have just death, as in these are things that happen in life, and those are the conversations that I feel like at times as the church we bury our head in the sand and hope that it goes away. But the problem is it's not going away. So that's what the Dawn Project is meant to be. So that even as we are working on the skill side, we are challenging people on the faith side and just be like, at the end of the day, you can't find the answers unless you actually have a relationship with this God. Because even if we have these conversations for 20 years, if I'm close to God, then I will not understand God's perspective. It's always going to be some believer's perspective over there who sounds judgmental. But if I have that personal relationship with God, over time, He's the one who's going to uh, pick me and just say, you know what, you don't need to listen, boy. So because that's been my life. So that's what the Dawn project is about. So Dawn is an acronym that stands for Dance, Art, and Worship Network. And then the third thing I'd like to do with the Dawn project is missions, because uh, I believe that it's not just an in-house thing. You need to also impact uh, outside. So the missions are going to probably be through concerts, visiting, being part of community projects, depending on the various places we go to. For example, if we come to the States, the need is different from Kenya. For the States, most people may not, or for most first world countries, the needs may not necessarily be financial, but it could be mental health or family, because there are a lot of divorce cases and things like that. So how do you do ministry in such situations? So that's what the Dawn Project is meant to be. Yeah. What it is right now is just a couple of dancers coming to do 13 projects, 13 videos, and a concert in the next 10 months. So that's where we are starting. That's like our foundation, and see where God is going to take it from there. So, actually, the funny thing is, right now, the most important, not most important, most consistent people in my in this project, it's not mine per se, but in this project actually are people I met in 2020 and after. It feels like 2020 was a reboot for me in a way. And uh, of the people who we met before, probably there's just a handful, and they're not as consistent, partly because life happened, as in uh, when you start having to think about bills to pay, and there's no clear structure yet, it's really hard to bring the older guys. So most of the people I have are pretty much younger guys that I'm mentoring, and some of them are people that I have employed in my career side. It's called Samuregz Dance and Entertainment Center, or SDEC, on social media, SDEC underscore KE. But that's a conversation for another day. So most of the people now come from the these guys that I met in 2020. And actually, the interesting thing is most of them were giving up on dance, and to an extent even were giving up on faith. So having them be a major part of this for me is really a huge step in the right direction and a huge win. I don't think I have like a specific thing. I think it's something that's been built over time. Because one of the struggles I've had with dance is the fact that we don't have mentorship in Kenya. Because not many people before my generation took dance professionally, and more so in the church. And so there was always a gap in terms of how do I, if someone wants to pursue it as a career, there were no spaces or even guidance on how to go about it. There was also no guidance in terms of how to do it from a faith perspective. Like, like how a worship leader could have an 8 to 5 job but then sing on Sundays without expecting any pay. So we didn't have either of the two, where either you're doing ministry or doing it as a career after university or college or campus. And I feel like my journey is what now brought me to this point. To an extent, I think the idea birthed in 2019, uh, but then the execution came in 2020. And actually, how it came about was in a way by mistake. Not really by mistake, but by chance. Because I was listening to Together in my bed while I was very low and I was stressed. And I just heard the song and I was like, you know what? This will actually be a really good dance to inspire the world with. But I didn't feel like dancing, as in it's one of those things that I feel like this can move hearts, but then I can't do it. So I called up 7 of my friends and I told them, hey, what's up? So there's this song. So we do a piece to it. Guys were cool. But then they're like, how do we do this? I was like, let me write a script, let me send you the part that you need to do, and then once you've done it, I'll do the editing and then we can post it and share it. They were like, cool. Uh, to put this in context, my YouTube channel rarely has over 1,000 views. So it wasn't one of those things I was doing hoping like it would be like this huge blowout. I was just doing it because, life has hit me. I need to do something. And then, so I wrote a script where every dancer had 15 seconds, and and everyone was meant to do the chorus. And so there was, from the seven, okay, plus me, we were eight. Of the eight, one person was in a completely different country because she was in the UK. I think you remember her, Tiri. There was guys from different towns, guys from different cities in a way. Some people who are like 3 hour drives from where I was at that point. And so guys did their pieces, sent it to me, did the edits, did an intro, posted it online, and then I sent for King and Country the video on mail and forgot about it. I also tagged them on social media. So I think after 2 days, I saw for King and Country had tagged me in the post, and I was like, wait, what? As in, this is for King and Countries, for King and Country. They are winners of awards, as in they're like gold standard in terms of gospel dance, at least from what we see. As in, you when you're winning Dove awards, you're pretty much the gold standard of and just to ensure that the people who might not understand my what's it called, my accent, it's gold with an L, not without an L. Thank you very much. So the gold standard of you got it. The gold standard of music. And so when they tagged me in the post, I was so honored. And I thought it ended there. Then the next day, I woke up and I was like, oh, they've not just shared it, they've actually sponsored the video. When someone goes to an extent of actually sponsoring something, as in they're using their own finances to push something, for me, that was huge, you know. And then Joel sends me a video thanking me for directing that piece. And honestly, it did a huge, because on the other side, my personal life wasn't so good. I was having a battle at that point, especially with the family side. So for me, that was a really huge moment. But again, you don't think it goes beyond that. Then a month later, they reach out again and they're like, so here's the thing. We've actually now done a remix and we want to do it like a dance video because that video inspired us. Would you guys want to be a part of this? Of course, we wanted to be a part. How can we not? So I remember when I was shooting, so we did two shoots. One I did with a friend of mine in church on Sunday, and then we were to do our main shoot on Monday. And by the time it was the Monday shoot, as in most of my guys, because like I said, Don Project isn't a crew per se, it's a ministry. So you work with the dancers who are available. So the dancers may consistently change. You may only have like four constant faces who are like the leaders, but then the rest of the guys will constantly keep changing. So some of the guys were not available, some guys were available. So I remember that day I wasn't feeling well. I didn't even have, because I was at home. I was at home, not at home. I was at my dad's place, so I had not carried like clothes that even look good for video. So I picked up my brother's t-shirt. I went and bought a trouser from somewhere, and then we did practice and shot on the same day. And then because we didn't have, it's one of those things where you don't have equipment, so you use what you have. So we did verse two and the chorus only. We didn't do verse one. And we shot with a phone. And it's interesting how looking at the video, just how much we were actually featured. And for me, I was just thinking, as in this is God. Because if I was to gauge it based on human standards, chances are very high we wouldn't even be talking here about for king and country. But that God allowed that to happen. And for me, that's when now probably the Dawn project stopped being an idea and it started being an actualization. Then after that, we did like 6 more videos in 2020. Then last year, when the economy was opened up, most guys went back to work. So we didn't have a team. And I also focused more on trying to get back to my feet. So the better part of last year, the Dawn project didn't happen. It's only up until this year that we revamped it again. And we started small. We started with practice with like 3, 4 people. And then after my concert with my students with the career side, that's when I can say we really hit gear in terms of now trying to get to where I would like it to be.
So with all that laid out, you have like the people, you have Sam, you have the vision, you have the purpose behind it. I personally wanted to know like where he got this perspective, because later on in the clip, part of the interview was me talking to him about like, you know, ministry and being the bridge that connects ministries and artists and things like that, and getting people from different places and mixing them all together. And he starts talking about how he wants accountability and how he wants both moral and financial accountability, because he understands the idea of a team, of a group, of an organization, and he knows he's not perfect, which is super humble. And also wanting to say like if people like donate to the ministry, then they need to know like the money is going to where I said it's going to go. So having that financial accountability, and then I'm not perfect, so if I make a decision, like people can weigh in on what's going on and what's happening, because I'm not perfect. And so I'm thinking like this is kind of like perspectives and things that you get when you're like old, right? You're like years down the road, you're like, man, if I could go be young again, if I could go back, this is what I would do. It's like this is the perspective now that I know. If I were to be young again, this is how I would build it instead, or this is the decisions that I would make, or this is the, you know, trajectory I would create for myself. So I just kind of asked him point blank, like, why are you like this? Not in a bad way, but it's like these are things that you would learn when you're old, and he's not old. So I'm like, how did this happen? And so he kind of explains these 4 things that got him to where he is.
The first most cliche answer is it's God. That's the first most cliche answer I can give. Uh, but then I'll explain with points 2, 3, and 4 why it's God. Like God has guided me through a specific journey, and that is now my second point. My journey and the pain I have gone through has allowed me to see holes that I'd like to fill. You know, when I was when I was younger, I'm gonna use your line. When I was younger, because now I'm 32. I don't look like it, but I'm 32. But when I was like 10 years ago and I was trying to find a mentor, I really couldn't find one. And I mean, it was either I find dancers who are not saved, and that's not the kind of character I'd want to develop, because it would mean that I'd very likely compromise on my faith, or the people who would mentor me in faith could not mentor me in dance and entrepreneurship in dance. And oftentimes they get frustrated, and over time just communication just dies off. Uh, and for me, I felt like that's something I'd want to do one day. So for me, when I was thinking about this, it was always, I didn't know what exactly, but I was like, one day I'd like to be that person that people can look up to. Because I really struggled for, especially the first like 6 years was a huge struggle. And to an extent, even the next was a struggle because trying to set up like 3 different things while handling life responsibilities is still a challenge. But my life experiences, and you see, that's for me something that I feel like is also God led, because if if you look at it on the flip side, if my life, if I had it easy, if every person I ever approached as a mentor understood my problem, I'd probably not be thinking the way I'm thinking right now. I'd think it comes naturally. But because I saw a need, then I was like, how can I step in? The second thing is because the third thing, because the first one is God, the second one is my journey, the third one is having a degree in BCom allowed me to think structures. And I guess because yeah, bachelor of commerce, it's like finance, accounting, human resource, all put. It's like it's almost like business management. Actually, it's an equivalent of business management. Yeah. So having a degree in that and going to school allowed me to start thinking of structures from a really young age. Uh, and it helps me to understand what, like, I can see what we are doing wrong as most artists. Because for most artists, 80% is our skill and 20% is the business strategies and structures. Whereas if you look at most organizations, 80% is strategy and 20% is the product. Because it really something this is the unfortunate bit, for once I'm not this is the only part I'm probably not going to talk like a Christian. No one cares how good you are unless you're meeting their need. Like, if if you think of phones, iPhones are better than Android by far. But the reason why majority of the people still have Android is because it meets our basic needs. I can get everything an iPhone has to offer at a cheaper price. Maybe not the same quality, but as in, I have a phone that can shoot 4K. So if I don't have that price, or if I have other priorities, I'll go for these other things. Uh, and so unless you're like the top 5%, most of the people won't come for such products. And so it's the same thing with uh, even our gifts, because most artists focus on their gifts and their talents. But then if you see some of the most successful artists, they're not even the most gifted. They just have a team that pushes their content and they know how it is to reach these people. Some of the most gifted artists are still underground just because they don't have the right structures around them. And because if you think about it, if I have something and I need Joel to hear it, it needs to get to Joel. So the first thing I need to do is figure out what does Joel like. And there are two ways to go about it. I can either do what Joel likes, or I can keep being in Joel's face long enough for him to like what I am offering. And you see, the problem is we are not willing to offer what Joel likes, and we are not in Joel's face enough to make him see what we are offering. That's, I mean, knowing what Joel likes, that's called research. It's called market research. And being in Joel's face long enough is called marketing and branding, you know. Uh, and then we might be in your face long enough, but you still won't engage us unless we come and sell it to you. Well, that's called sales. Because if you're seeing my content and I'm not getting money from it, then it's not a career, it's a hobby, you know. And so I guess just going to school taught me all these things. And also the fourth thing is I love learning a lot, as in I'll watch YouTube videos about anything and everything. I'm trying to read books. I wish I was a better reader. I think if there's one thing I can improve on, is that. That's the one thing I'd like to improve on, reading. But I just love learning in general. I love sitting down and listening to people's stories. I used to listen to this podcast called How I Built This during last year, as I was trying to come up. Every single day, I just had people's stories. Even yesterday, I was just sitting down with someone who was getting into the race car industry and just listening to their stories. Uh, and this was while I was after I had emceed the wedding and an event, and I was so tired. So that's the other thing, I just sit down with people, listen to their stories, and I'm not afraid to, listen to someone's story and learn from them. And so combine the four things. I think that's why now I'm able to think both in terms of the past, the present, and the future. Because all of us want to all of us want to have a good future. But the unfortunate bit is our present is we are still doing the same things we were doing in the past. Like for example, when I was a dancer, my focus was on becoming the best I could be from a skill perspective. Then when I became a choreographer, I may not have the same level of energy per se because I'm training. My focus is not at that point, my level of success isn't based on how people remember me, but based on how good my team becomes. Then becoming an entrepreneur, it's no longer just how good my team becomes, is are they able to earn a living from this? From a ministry perspective, the greatest success for me would be, are these guys leaving an impact? And what are some of the reasons why most people in church don't leave an impact? Because this person probably doesn't have transport coming for practice. They probably don't have uh, they've probably not eaten on that day. They probably don't have mentorship in terms of character. And so after dancing, going out there and they're sleeping around with girls and boys, and so these are some of the things that make us less effective in ministry, which means that they're the things that we need to address. Uh, in the next 5 or 10 years, my goals need to also have shifted. If I'm still thinking of the same things I'm thinking of right now, then it means that I am not growing. So, because life needs to be a continuous uh, change, a continuous growth. So yeah, I feel like that's why I think probably different than most, because for someone who's doing this full time, you pick up more lessons than someone who's doing it part time or someone who's doing it as a hobby. But it also means that you fail more than your normal average or your normal dancer, if I may put it like that.
So, with God, with education, with experience, even suffering, um, a vision of where he wants to go versus where he is right now and what he wants to do in the future, he has all these things in his tool belt that he can move forward as he grows and he waters this project that he's created, which is beautiful. It starts from something and it pulls from the past, you know, to go to the future. My personally Be Hunter Dance and even the talk show has gone through this process, like what I have in my tool belt to bring along with me into the future. So the future for the Dawn Project specifically is a 13 video series that has a specific purpose to it. So this is Sam describing um, that project and what its purpose is.
Yeah, so the project is we're working on 13 videos based on real life issues. So the first two episodes and the last two are pretty much having God at the center. So beginning and ending with God, like ideally it all begins with God and then God gives us our purpose, for lack of a better word. But then there are things that we go through that either hinder us from achieving our purpose or helps us to achieve our purpose. And we're going to address most of the things that hinder us from achieving our purpose. So there's one which includes our insecurities, our weaknesses and sin. That's another topic. We have death, we have uh, heartbreak. One of the things that helps us and at times stops us from achieving our purpose is love, as in if you find the right person, the wrong person, but at times even the right person, and you're just so lost in your feelings and you forget to do what it is God has called you to do, uh, or even the responsibilities that come with that you know so it's going to try and not really address. The point is to start conversations, not really give a solution, because I feel like that's one of the things we do wrong, where we try give a solution and the solution is normally half baked. So for me it's more of I want to start conversations, uh, and then after all is said and done, just being like, what, even though all these things are happening, it's still all about God. So the last two now become about God. Uh, we've already done one video. We are in the process of episode 2 and 3 we will shoot them together because they're sort of really linked, even in terms of costume and everything. uh, the greatest challenge we currently have is finances, because, like I said, I am pretty much giving everything from my own pockets, and I have other family responsibilities, like I'm supporting my sister. I'm also trying to set up the other side, so that's our greatest challenge right now. So we are doing the most we can with the little we have, because I've made the excuse of money for such a long time. I was like, by the time I get the money, I'll be 40 and I'll not be dancing. So let me do it now with the little I have. As we try to raise support for that. Then, uh, yeah, but by and large, I guess other than that, I'm really grateful that I now have a team that we can actually get to do this. Yeah.
Last thing before I go, this is Sam on social media. So go ahead and follow him and message him and let him know you found out about him because of the show. And hopefully you get to see uh, this project bloom as he pours into it. And hope maybe you, if you decide, you can support it yourself. So have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.